Uhuru, welcome to the monthly event of the African People's Solidarity Committee. Today's event, titled Putting the State on Trial, calls on white people to be part of the campaign to fight back against the current FBI and US government's attack on the Black Liberation Movement, which is trying to silence Chairman Omali Yeshitela, along with APSC Chair Penny Hess and Uhuru Solidarity Movement Chair Jesse Neville. My name is Brendan. I'm a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, or APSC. The African People's Socialist Party formed APSC in 1976 with the mandate that we organize other white people to build the movement of reparations and build genuine solidarity with the movement to liberate, or the liberation movement of African people. That's our assignment. That is our work. And we work under the direct leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Now, before we get started, if you are tuning in on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe so you can get alerts whenever we go live or post a new video. If you are tuning in on Facebook, please share the live stream, invite all your friends, all your family, help us get the word out about these. And let us know in the comments where you were tuning in from. We will have a Q&A later on in the program. So make sure to take notes and please enter any questions into the Q&A feature in Zoom or in the comments section of YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're tuning in on. I want to let everyone know that this event is a fundraiser for the Uhuru Solidarity Center, where I am today, this beautiful center. This is the national headquarters of the Solidarity Movement. It's a beautiful organizing center. We're located on the south side of St. Louis. And on the front, there's a big banner outside that reads "Unity Through Reparations." And this building is owned by the party's Black Star Industries. Tonight, we have a goal to raise $500. So please go to apscuhuru.org/donate to make a contribution, and we'll make sure to have that in the chat as well. Now, I wanna go ahead and salute and welcome APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess and Uhuru Solidarity Movement Chair Jesse Neville, who will give us an overview and will be interviewing tonight's special guest, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So let's go ahead and get started. Turning it over to you, to Chairs Penny and Jesse. Welcome.
Uhuru, thank you, Brendan. Thank you so much for that introduction. And we are very honored to be here tonight. I'm so glad to be with Comrade Jesse Neville, and the leader of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and myself, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. We really welcome everybody who has come on tonight. And just to reiterate again, because the African People's Solidarity Committee is a unique organization of white people under the leadership of the African Revolutionary Movement, the African People's Socialist Party, and the Uhuru movement. And In today's event, we will have the honor of hearing from Chairman Omali Yeshitela. We'll see him. He's going to be on, and that's always exciting. And it's very, what can I say, very electrifying when we have the chairman on and we can be in these kind of discussions and go deeper into questions. So people, feel free to put questions into the chat, to raise any issues that you want to. Of course, we salute the Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has been struggling for more than 60 years for the freedom and liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. And we salute him as the leader of the African People's Socialist Party, and working with the basic premise that all Black people everywhere are African people forcibly dispersed around the world and living under colonialism, and that the birthright of all African people is Africa, is the continent of Africa, and that the chairman and the party have fought for reparations as the return of the stolen resources and stolen labor of African people, which built this parasitic social system in which we live. And Comrade Jesse, just really want to welcome you here today. And I'm excited about having this discussion.
Uhuru, Chairman
Uhuru.
Penny, I am also really excited to be on this webinar with you and here in the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg.
Yes.
Salute to all of our comrades here, Jamie and Janice and everybody who's tuning in online. And shout out to our comrades in St. Louis at the Uhuru Solidarity Center. Just hoping out the work there, Brendan and everybody that's at the viewing party happening in St. Louis right now. So that's really exciting. And I am also very, very much looking forward to this discussion with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who I want to join you in saluting. Chairman Omali, who is our leadership, who developed the political theory of African internationalism, in which this whole discussion tonight is grounded in this worldview that the chairman developed that represents the understandings of the world through the eyes of the African working class and the leadership of the African Revolution around the world. And we also want to extend a profound revolutionary salute to Deputy Chair Ona Zene Yeshitela, the Deputy Chair of the African People's Socialist Party, who is well known for her world-changing work coordinating the economic development programs of the Uhuru movement, anti-colonial political and economic programs of African working class power and self-government, including the incredibly inspiring Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, Missouri. So we want to salute our leadership, salute the African People's Socialist Party. I'm excited for this event and going into how we can take these understandings out in the world to organize other white people to build support for the right of African people to organize and advocate for their liberation.
Uhuru.
And I want to remind people to donate at apscuhuru.org/donate. Go ahead and put in your contribution. Let's get to that $500 goal.
Uhuru, yes, or more, because we're participating in, as the Solidarity Movement, purchasing this beautiful building that is the Solidarity Center, the Uhuru Solidarity Center in South St. Louis, that has a huge banner that says Unity Through Reparations. We'll talk about that more on Gravois Avenue, right there in South St. Louis. And we're raising the resources to pay off the mortgage of this building, which is owned by the African People's Socialist Party and its program Black Star Industries. So very exciting to do that, and really appreciate all the donations and resources that people turn over. Before we get to our amazing interview with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, though, I do want to take a few minutes to give a special salute to one of our dear comrades, Paul Breslin Kessler, who was just with us in St. Louis for several weeks, although he lives in Washington State. And I want to say that Paul is he has many talents and many skills, but one of them is he is an artisan carpenter. He is an artist that creates beautiful, beautiful cabinetry and other kinds of work. And he has jumped into turning over those skills as a stand of reparations, because reparations isn't just returning stolen money. It is also the skills that we have at the expense of the colonization of African people and indigenous people. And so Comrade Paul has worked to help renovate buildings and created other cabinets for the Uhuru Bakery Cafe as far back as 1985. And it's just, and he's still doing this today. So we're going to be able to show a video of him and, where we talk to him a little bit for a few minutes about the incredible stand that he has taken and just how much we appreciate him and salute his powerful contributions to this movement, turning over the very best of what he was able to learn at the expense, living on the pedestal of the oppression of African and oppressed peoples of the world. So we're going to show this little video of Paul, me talking to Paul, and yeah, so it's pretty good. Uhuru Paul.
Uhuru, Chairwoman Penny.
So great to have you on. How are you?
Doing well. Sorry I couldn't make the meeting tomorrow, but I'm really excited to be a part of it in some way anyway. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, first of all, I just want to let people know that you were recently in St. Louis and created, again, not the first time, the most beautiful, what would I say, handmade cabinets and display cases for the soon to be open Uhuru Bakery Cafe in North St. Louis, led by the Office of Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela. And they are so beautiful. But the thing that I think is really important is that that is not the first time you have contributed your amazing, amazing skills and talents to the Uhuru movement. It's really been many, many years. So I welcome you on our event tonight. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, how and when and where did you first join the Uhuru movement?
Yeah, it's quite a story. I was living in Santa Cruz, and on the Santa Cruz Mall, there was a table with a comrade I had known from UC Davis. We had both been arrested as student leaders and activists at UC Davis years and years before, and she was sitting at a table with a sign that said something about an Uhuru house. So I stopped by and I said hi, and I said, tell me about it. And as soon as she started describing it, I was really interested. So I left my name and number and never heard back from her. So one of the things I wanted to tie into this is my being organized says how important follow-up is, because I met her again and left my name and number and told her to call me again, and she didn't. So
oh my gosh.
And I called Oakland, and that's when Kitty started to come to Santa Cruz to sit with me and organize and read and study and explain African internationalism. And that's really how I got involved in the movement, is Kitty coming down from Oakland, an hour-and-a-half drive each way, once a week for about a month. And I really decided this was the thing I wanted to do with my life and started to participate.
Wow, but that is really, really powerful. And of course, it's a very serious criticism of our work. I'm glad you raised that. And I do hope and believe that is something that we have seriously tried to take on very, very studiously over the years. But I'm so glad that you were persistent and we did not lose you. You did not fall through the cracks, as Deputy Chair says. So I'm very happy that that you pursued it, comrade, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful time over all these years. What year was that again? About
85, 86.
85, 86. Wow. Yeah. All right. Yeah, almost 40 years ago.
Right.
And, I remember you jumping in about 1987, when we were out in Philadelphia, the party was out in Philadelphia renovating an Uhuru house, a building that they had gotten to become an Uhuru House Center in the African community of Philadelphia. And it was only a couple of years after the city and the government had dropped a bomb on the Move family, not too far from where the party was going to be opening the Uhuru House. And it was part of the reason why the party came to Philadelphia with the slogan, "Reinforcements are on the way." That was the slogan. So it was really powerful that you were there. And so tell me a little bit about that. I remember that as a very amazing thing. So tell me a little bit about that project.
Yeah, you were there as well. And I had never been in a community like that was so bombed out and dilapidated and falling apart. The thing that struck me most just walking around was seeing the buildings in total disrepair, but these beautiful green marble columns just in pristine condition, holding up these dilapidated, rooftops and porches and things like that. And it was a very hot summer. I remember it was my birthday month in August. And we started by clearing the basement, which was incredible work. The other things we worked on was repairing an entry door. And then I got asked to build a booth for street fairs. So I built a collapsible booth for the movement and for the party out of plywood and wood that they could take to street fairs and do fundraising. It was an amazing summer. I still remember the card you guys gave me that "Give me swelter" because it was so hot. I think I've saved that card, but it was a tremendous experience. It really cemented my relationship, and I remember that huge banner in solidarity with the family of Move that had been terrorized and murdered and imprisoned by the U.S. government.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That brings back so many memories. I was out there for part of that summer. And yes, that was the hottest. They talk about the heat wave now. That was the hottest summer ever. And it was really a great experience though, being there. And of course, I just remember your stance of just jumping in and, just getting to work, just making it happen. And that to me really defines so much of what you have brought to this movement. And I know that a few years later in 1989, you played a big role in building these beautiful cabinets and display cases, as I said, for the first time when the movement, the party, African People's Socialist Party, was opening up the Uhuru Bakery Cafe in Oakland, which was a wonderful, wonderful place on Telegraph Avenue. So yes, tell us a little bit about that, because they were stunningly gorgeous.
Well, I had the good fortune of working for a furniture maker at the time in an incredible shop. And I remember being asked if I could make a display case. And so I designed a display case and built it in the evenings after work. I would spend lots and lots of deep hours into the night making it and then slip it into my little van. And so my boss wasn't really clear about what I was making. And when I brought it up, the movement said, this is extraordinary. Can you do the rest of the bakery? And I absolutely said yes. So I designed everything around the display cabinet to have the same details and the same artwork and the same inlay. And it was an extraordinary experience. I remember recruiting a friend to help us install it. And what I heard the critics say is that it was the most beautiful bakery in the Oakland, in the Bay Area. And it should have been, because it was made like furniture and it was done beautifully, and all the comrades involved. It was absolutely extraordinary. And it was a wonderful eatery. I remember bringing my family up to eat there many times. It was such a special institution. I was so proud to be a part of it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it just made it, it was without a doubt, the most beautiful, beautiful, what do you call it, cabinets and display cases anywhere ever. And the ones that you've just made, you just got finished making over in St. Louis, for the projects being led by Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, were also very similar to those first ones. And it was, just say something about that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to acknowledge the courage and heart of my wife, Karina, because
Yes.
she's not well, and I am involved a lot in helping her and being here a lot and caring for her and doing the things she can't do right now because of her health. But when I was asked by you and Deputy Chair if I could come up, I had to consult with her first. And without hesitation, she gave me the green light to come up there and spend 3 weeks and dive into building these cabinets. And all credit to Karina for her courage to, hang in without me and get things done and ask the kids to help. So that's the first thing. The
Yes,
second
let
thing
me
is,
just say, I just really want to salute Karina, and Karina, we love you. You are amazing, and just really want to say how much we're all thinking about you and standing with you, and just, hoping for your improvement of health. But you just have been such a great and important force in this, and your whole family has been part of this. It's very beautiful to see, including your mom,
yes,
your late mother, who was a force of nature, let's say that.
it certainly was. So what's really cool about these cabinets is that Hallie got a donation of this wood, and we didn't know what the wood was. It was just very dense and hard, and it was free to the movement. So we said, well, let's use it. It turns out that it's Brazilian rosewood, which is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, wow.
And it has such a nice contrast to the plywood that I used, which is blonde, the same plywood I used in the old bakery. But the contrast of this gorgeous red wood is going to be so striking and stunning, especially with the Africa details when they're applied and the triangles that are going to be placed around the Africas. It's going to be a very unique and stunning display of African internationalism when we get that installed. And I do have to say, I wish I could have stayed to finish, but I am really appreciating the comrades who have participated. I want to give a big shout out to Matthew Rolleveld, who's a professional cabinet maker. I met him at the makerspace while I was working, and he has jumped in and volunteered his amazing skills to help push this project forward as well. I appreciate Sayali for leading it, and Hallie, and all the comrades who are going to put their hands on it for taking it from where I left it to completion. I can't wait to see it installed.
Wow. Wow. Well, I just thank you so much for being with us and for doing this work. And I want to salute you because, we talk about reparations and the stand of reparations, and we know that right now that the African People's Socialist Party is under a very serious attack. But that the kind of fearless and courageous solidarity that you have shown over the years is a true principled stand that, that white people can take, a real stand of reparations. It's not just turning over money and resources, which are needed, but it is turning over the skills that we have been able to learn, based on the reality of a society built at the expense of African and indigenous people. And so I can't tell you how much we appreciate you. We love you, comrade, and your family and Karina, and just thank you all, including Comrade Karina, for being able to support you in coming again to St. Louis, and just this beautiful, beautiful work, which is there hopefully for many, many, many decades to come. it's made to last, I'll say that. And it's just very beautiful work, and we appreciate you so much and appreciate your stand of reparations to the African Revolution, the African Liberation Movement. And we say unity through reparations, Uhuru, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. Thank you, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and owner Zane Yeshitela. This has been a defining part of my life as an adult, so I'm not going anywhere.
Uhuru, Uhuru.
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 Uhuru. Yes,
Salute
I'm
to
sorry.
Comrade
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Really, really salute Comrade Paul. Couldn't be with us tonight, actually, Jesse, because he is doing a fundraiser for Hands Off Uhuru in Spokane, Washington.
Right on.
Yeah, so he was like, he didn't want to mess up that, but so we did this video, and that was wonderful. So now we are so excited to come to the main section of our event tonight, our program. And we have the profound honor to introduce Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who leads the African Revolution, who, despite every kind of attack by this vicious colonial mode of production, this vicious, violent colonial state, the chairman has fought for humanity, for the right of African people to be free and liberated, and for self-government, and to have just the resources needed to live and to prosper, and to have the leadership and self-government that African people must have. And we know that when African people are free, the world will be free. So Chairman Omali Yeshitela, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to say Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru,
Thank you,
welcome.
comrades. I'm really happy to be here. I really want to salute Comrade Paul and his magnificent wife, Karina. I've known both of them for so many years, and so I just wanted to express my appreciation to the solidarity, the work, the reparations that they've been involved in. And as you mentioned, Paul's mother was also a part of this movement, and just an extraordinarily significant force. And I also want to ask people to go ahead and make the $500 contribution. I think is extremely important for the work that's happening out of the Solidarity Center there in St. Louis, which was one of the sites of attack by the United States government when they attacked our party. That was one place that they attacked as a part of that struggle. So just go to APSC.org/donate, I think it is. And let's make the $500 that we're trying to get there. And I also just want to say that Comrade owner Zane Yeshitela, I'm right now actually in St. Petersburg, Florida, at our home in St. Petersburg, Florida, and which came under attack, despite the fact that we were living in St. Louis and at the time. And but we are preparing now for the work, doing the work necessary for preparation for the trial that's happening on September 3rd, when the United States government plans to initiate a legal lynching. They've added some elements of niceties and things like that to the history of lynching of Black people and this uppity Negroes. And so on September 3rd, we have that trial, but the deputy chair owner, Zane Yeshitela, couldn't be here because of the work that she's doing there in St. Louis right now with the Black Power Blueprint, and the fact that the intent to open that bakery cafe that the cabinet that Paul is working on is supposed to go in, and the city has suddenly come up with new regulations and things like that that we have to find a way requirements we have to find a way to meet in order to open this up is extraordinary. You know, we're talking about bringing food to what they call a food desert. You know, we come up with all of these attacks on us. So the deputy chair, stalwart warrior as she is, has had to be there, trying to go through this process of requirements so that we can make it possible to put Paul's cabinet into that remarkable initiative that we've created right there on West Florissant in St. Louis, Missouri. So thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. $500, send the $500.
Or more.
Yeah, or more, yeah.
Chairman, thank you so much for that little overview, and to also, of course, salute again Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela and the amazing, powerful work that she has done in many places in the U.S. and the world, but as part of the African People's Socialist Party, but especially in St. Louis, where it is very, very beautiful and stunning to see. Chairman, you talked to us a lot about the crisis of imperialism, this colonial mode of production, this depth of what colonialism really means to the peoples of the world and what it means to white people. And you've talked about this period as, quote, the great unraveling, when everything is up for grabs, this crisis that is deepening every day. And we see it in the news, we see it in the elections, you know, we see it in the economy, we see it in just all of the social contradictions that exist within this prison of nations of the United States, stolen land. And, you know, you mentioned, or we talked about the Assange case, which the US government, after 12 years, just recently was forced to resolve. And we want to talk to you about a couple of things tonight. One, we would like to talk to you about just a little bit, or give people, comrades listening, a little bit of history about political trials that the US has held in the past, or forced in the past, especially against the African Liberation Movement and the Black Panther Party. And we also wanted to talk to you about this question that's out there, and that is the term fascism. But we will come back to that in a minute. And Comrade Jesse, yeah.
Uhuru, Chairman, yeah, it's a great honor to have you on this webinar, and just kind of building on what Chairwoman Penny was talking about, the crisis of imperialism that you've been summing up for many years, and the fact that perhaps one of, if not the sharpest expressions of that crisis is the attack that the US government is making against the African People's Socialist Party, against you as the leader of the African Revolution, for the fact that because of more than 50 years of struggle, the US government has not been able to crush the African Revolution. And they're trying to attack the party and attack you because you represent this profound vision of the liberation of the African working class, transformation of the world that we're in the middle of right now. And the party is at the center of that. Your political and organizational leadership is at the center of that, is at the helm, the vanguard of that. And, you know, so we understand in this context that the government's assault on the African People's Solidarity Committee, on the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, on Chairwoman Penny Hess, on myself, is part of the attack on you and on the party, on the strategy of African internationalism to extend the struggle for African liberation behind enemy lines. And because we represent these white organizations formed by under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. So I'm excited to talk and learn more about this whole concept of a political trial. Like you just said, the US government is trying to initiate a legal lynching, and your strategy from day one has been that they are not going to put the Uhuru movement on trial. The Uhuru movement is going to put the state on trial, is going to put the US government and colonialism itself on trial. And that's ultimately what these political trials have been about. So we're excited to talk with you more about this and gain a deeper understanding of this.
Uhuru. Yes, well, I just wanted to, Chairman, if I could, I wanted to go back to a famous trial of that started, well, I guess it actually took place around 1970 or 1971. The Panther 21 trial, which was, wanted to just say something about that because this is an obvious political trial attack that is going to involve a bogus trial and completely bogus charges against the African People's Socialist Party. We're kind of looking at other trials from the past, and in the late 1960s, in 1969, as part of the counterinsurgency, which you have taught us about, the U.S. government's war against the incredible Black Power movement, African liberation movement of the 1960s. There were so many trials that the Black Panther Party was involved in that the Panther 21, which took place in New York City, didn't have a lawyer because, Charles Gary and they were in Chicago. There was the Chicago case and, other cases going on. And so on April 2nd, 1969, 21 Black Panther members were indicted and on charges that were, saying that blowing up the botanical gardens, the plans to blow up the botanical gardens of the Brooklyn or New York City, and 21 members of the Black Panther Party were indicted, but that number dropped to actually 13 that actually went to trial. And the bail was set at $100,000 each for then, which would be something like $1 million today. And these comrades spent months and or even years at Rikers Island, a brutal prison of New York City. And they were charged, the Panthers were charged with conspiracy to, quote, kill several police officers and destroy a number of buildings, including, these 5 department stores and the Bronx Botanical Gardens and all of these ridiculous things. But an interesting thing that the prosecutor read from Chairman Mao's Little Red Book, the prosecutor did, and the prosecutor showed the court, the jury, the movie, The Battle of Algiers, I guess thinking that was going to not win them, right. But that was, those are very winning. And it was it was an 8-month trial, the longest and most expensive in New York State history. And Afeni Shakur, who gave testimony to the first tribunal on reparations to African people, led by you, Chairman, and the African People's Socialist Party in 1982, had no choice but to represent herself in the court. And of course, she hadn't attended law school, or she was also very pregnant with her son Tupac while on trial, and she was facing a 300-year sentence. They had many, many charges, but she went in and interviewed witnesses in the court, and she was responsible, as you know, for overturning that case and just shredding it, and that forced the state and the prosecutors to just, I guess,
they acquitted them.
Yeah, they acquitted them. They acquitted all the people that were there. But I just wanted to read to you, Chairman, a little bit, just the thing, because the 13 defendants of the Panther 21 wrote a statement that I thought was very, very powerful. And then, just wanted you to comment or talk about that period and this period. But they wrote a statement. They said, "It is time to state the truth. for Black people, for poor Puerto Rican, Mexican, Chinese, Indian, and poor white people. The American system of justice is a hideous sham and a revolting farce. We must look at the situation objectively, as has been implied in the preceding. We realize that we are not second-class citizens at all. We are a colonized people. We see that we are still considered chattel. We see how the Fugitive Slave Act has been modified in words, but is still being used, how the Dred Scott decision has never been reversed, that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution did not liberate us, that in fact, in social reality, they only legalized slavery and expanded the Dred Scott decision to include Indian, Spanish-speaking, and poor white people. We are in your prison, but these are not our laws. These are your laws. And in dealing with Black and poor people, you do not even adhere to your own laws. I just thought that was very similar to some of the statements and summations that you had made in terms of this current brutal attack against the African People's Socialist Party and against you, Chairman. So I wanted to, just welcome you and open up this discussion, Uhuru.
Or thank you so much. I think it's remarkable what you've already had to say about the trial of the Panther 21. The fact, first of all, that the prosecutor would go into the bag and pull out quotations by Chairman Mao Zedong, who had become a formidable force against colonialism and for national liberation, had led the struggle for the liberation of China, had influenced revolutionary movements of oppressed and colonized peoples all over the world. And then that they would also show the Battle of Algiers, which is something, it's in North Africa where against colonialism. And then they would have the pamphlet, they would doing this at a trial of African people who we've come to know as the Panther 21, clearly recognizing the relationship of all these people, all these forces to colonial oppression. And the prosecutor would take that, even with the assumption that a jury would recognize this relationship, and making sure that a jury would recognize this relationship, and attempting to show a jury why the Black Panther Party was such a threat, because it had the politic of anti-colonialism of Mao, the anti-colonialism of our brothers and sisters fighting in Algeria. So I thought that's really important. I think it's really telling and remarkable. Just remarkable example of the colonial question and how it was there in a certain way. So that's important. And our party was founded through a process that had its origin in the 60s. And in 1972, we founded the African People's Socialist Party with the objective to continue the Black Revolution of the 60s. Well, the US government had been so successful in the wars against the Black Panther Party that included what they did with the Panther 21, that the struggle that the Panthers had initiated and tried to pursue around colonialism was if nullified in so many different ways. And the party completing the Black Revolution of the 60s took up that struggle. And that's almost a literal truth. If anyone who had been around at this time would have seen how the movement attempted to go in these other directions, even proclaiming that we didn't need a party. When I say the movement, I'm talking about people who were considered to be a part of this anti-colonial, pro-independence sector of the movement. Many of them proclaimed that we didn't need a party, that we had to just have coalitions. The government helped to influence people to believe that there was something wrong with parties. Hierarchy, leadership became, something that people were criticized for even having built into organizations and things like that. But the party was here. And our objective was not to run from what had to be done, not to run from the colonial question, as many people were doing. Well, people were locked up and people were assassinated and things like that. And then you had these opportunists who would say the struggle never was about self-determination, self-government against colonialism, and they began. Their influence was enhanced by ruling class media, white leftists who had liquidated the colonial question, or the national question, as they like to call it at the time, with the presumption that Africans and Mexicans and the people who were characterized in that statement from the Panther 21 were somehow nationalists, and somehow we were dividing the working class in this country, while the white people, were the internationalists, et cetera. So this was part of what we had to try to overcome, and the party did. But the other thing is that many of the most courageous folk that we had, you talk about Comrade Afeni, and there was Sundiata, and so many other people who were in prison, and many of them spent years and years. I just saw a photo, a picture today of Sundiata in the hospital bed, and with people standing around him like it's ready to read his last rites and stuff like that. And he just got out of prison. This is what they've done to us. And so you had folk like that who were locked up in prison, and almost the entire revolutionary movement African movement was locked up, assassinated, people underground, people chased out of the country and things like that. But the African People's Socialist Party, we came into existence in 1972 out of the Black Revolution of the 1960s, and with the stated objective to complete that revolution of the 1960s. And because we were on the ground, we were doing the work on a regular basis. You can go throughout the 1970s when the movement was supposed to be dead. You would see the party there. The party was there in a very serious kind of way, and engaged in all kinds of struggles, and within these struggles, ideological and philosophical development. Our world continued to expand, and which is very difficult for comrades who were locked up in prison. I mean, there were things they could read from prison, they can hear from prison, but their practical experience, which is absolutely necessary, if not theirs directly, certainly to be connected with the revolutionary movement that had practical experience with the world, which was really important. Otherwise, the world is limited to cells and prison blocks and things like that, and the preoccupation becomes getting out of prison as opposed to destroying a colonial mode of production that put us in prison. And so the party, continued to develop, and we went beyond the question of colonialism. I mean, we wrote, many years ago, 1970s, writing about how our approach to the question of colonialism was different. I mean, we had Stokely talking about colonialism, and Eldridge Cleaver talking about colonialism. Malcolm X had talked about colonialism. Many of them, and I don't think that was true of Malcolm, but they use question of racism and colonialism interchangeably. And we said, no. That colonialism is real. It's a material. It's not just something in the brains of somebody. It's not whether somebody likes us or not. It has real material manifestation, and it can only be gotten rid of by the colonized. The colonized you don't get rid of colonialism by curing racism or making white people like you or integrating into the colonial system. We have to be a self-governing people. That means that we have to replace our circumstances, remove ourselves from the total absolute domination by a foreign and colonial and hostile alien power. So that's what we've done, and that's how we come up through development over a period of time, actual work out in the world, actually working even with some of the white leftists and forces like that who were supposed to be engaged in the same struggle and engaged in struggles with these forces and on the ground and trying to win forces to support Black people, colonized people in the struggle against colonialism. This is what helped us to develop and understand that we were not looking at like a policy. Colonialism has been a policy in so many ways, but it moved beyond the policy and it became what we characterize as a mode of production. I just want to say, when we talk about a mode of production, we're talking really about a way of life. We're talking about a process that's really important. That Karl Marx is one of the people who really introduced this understanding of a mode of production. This is the way a society procures what is necessary for the creation and recreation of life in the society. And it's really important because it's one step toward taking people who are interested in trying to make revolution, changing our relationship to an oppressive system. It brings science to the question, as opposed to now thinking things happening to us badly because we don't have the right religion, because the white people don't like us, we didn't make the good speeches, we don't have this kind of leader, etc. It gave us a definition that brought science to the discussion and say within human society, people have to engage in certain kinds of relationships to produce life, to reproduce life. And there are modes of production that have specific characteristics and what have you. And Marx, he came to some conclusions that we don't disagree with all of the conclusions he came to, but what we do understand is a mode of production was born that we call a colonial mode of production. And this was something that has been sort of like a missing link in folk who've been trying to understand this relationship and why can't the white left and the black people liberation struggle come out on the same end? How don't we come to the same conclusions around this? Because there's an absolute distinctly different relationship each of us has to the social system, although we're all locked into this parasitic relationship. I've spoken too long now, I know that. So Uhuru, go ahead.
Uhuru, Chairman, Uhuru. I just really want to say that, first of all, I really salute you and the African People's Socialist Party for coming into the situation of the counterinsurgency, this war against the African liberation movement, with the stand to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. That's what you've always had, not to accept a situation that was there, but deepening the political understanding and also really having the confidence that white people also can understand science. And I thank you for that, because it makes us have to live up to, that stand. And I wanted to just raise the question. A lot of people are talking about this term fascism, and you have said and written about fascism a lot. And I think that this whole colonial mode of production that you talk about has a particular worldview of defining that colonialism versus fascism. And I just wanted you to see if you could address that as well. A lot of Americans are interested.
I find the concept offensive. And I know that some revolutionary African forces, like George Jackson in particular, he had a lot to say about fascism, etc. And the thing that I find troubling about it is that that fascism, when Portugal was murdering Africans throughout Congo, it was not characterized as fascism. When white people were killing indigenous peoples here in this country, it was not characterized as fascism. Maybe as many as 11 or 15 million Africans were killed in Congo. It was not called fascism. The almost disappearance of the indigenous people in this country was not characterized as fascism. The only time we saw fascism emerge is when some of the symptoms of colonialism that Africans in Congo and the indigenous people here and other places around the world, and Africans other places, the Vietnamese, some of the symptoms of colonialism that we all live with begins to creep, make their way into the colonizer's society. And this, of course, comes as a consequence of crisis. And what is the crisis usually stemming from? Usually the crisis is stemming from the struggles of the colonized to take back our liberty and our resources and what have you, creating economic and political crisis. And then when this crisis emerge, and then you see repression and a certain kind of cannibalism within the colonial population, the colonizers' population. So, I mean, there's nothing that Hitler did or that Mussolini did or that Franco and Spain did, and these are where people come to see examples of what fascism is supposed to be. There's nothing that they did comparable to what happened to the indigenous people in the Americas. There's nothing that they did comparable to turning an entire continent, 12 million square miles inhabited by Black people into an area of exploitation for the production of people who would be taken into colonial slavery. There's nothing that happened that compares with all of the stuff that the colonizers have done. And some of the most outstanding, well-recognized anti-fascists, like the French, for example, were themselves vicious colonialists. Mm-hmm. And so the France, who picked up this reputation for, having guerrillas who were fighting against the fascists, etc., it was brutal in Algeria. France was, and it was brutal in the 14 or 15 different so-called French controlled Africa that we are talking about. It was brutal in Vietnam. So you got these people are fighting against fascism on the one hand, but colonialism, they all were active participants as colonialists. They were not just colonizers in the sense that, all Europeans who live in this relationship can be characterized as colonizers. They were colonialists. They were active. They were conscious. They were actually had power, and they were incentivized to keep the people oppressed. I mean, what did France do? What did France do all over Africa? What did France do when Secretary of Guinea refused to accept this dirty deal that they were offering for independence? And what was France? How was it in the position of offering anybody independence except other French persons? That's colonialism. And so to stick this thing called fascism in there is to describe a phenomenon of the contradiction that's happened between the colonizers. And what Africans and other oppressed people end up having to do is to pick this colonizer versus the other colonizer, because this one is fascist versus the one who's not fascist. And the question of colonialism goes untouched. And I just remember Amilcar Cabral when answering the question of to white leftists in Portugal. Portugal was a fascist state, and under fascist domination by the Portuguese state was a fascist state. And so the left there, Portugal, was telling Cabral and Africans who were fighting against Portuguese colonialism that you really got to fight against fascism. If you fight against Portuguese fascism, that will destroy colonialism. And Cabral said, we hate fascism, and we believe that the best contribution that we can make to the destruction of fascism is to make the struggle against colonialism. And we guarantee, what we know for sure is that the destruction of colonialism will destroy fascism. And of course, Portugal, I think this year, celebrate the 50th anniversary of what they like to refer to as the Carnation Revolution that ended the Portuguese fascism. And that in that 50th anniversary, that Carnation Revolution that overturned Portuguese fascism happened 7 months after the liberation of Portuguese Guinea-Bissau. So Cabral was absolutely right that this whole thing rests upon the foundation of colonialism, and people make this mistake. And of course, we don't like oppression and exploitation, but it's normal. It's normal for most of the people around the world. Where the abnormality is is when it turned on to the colonizers themselves. What about somebody's putting in here like the 60 years of a blockade on Cuba? Nobody called that fascism. It's colonialism. And this whole issue of fascism gets introduced when you see a situation where the colonizers are engaged in oppression against other colonial subjects. And there can be fascist colonialism. There is liberal and democratic colonialism where actually white people vote on it. Look at the white people in occupied Palestine. They have elections and stuff like that, and they vote on colonial domination of the Palestinian people. You know, this is democracy. Democratic fascism is what we're looking at. So I just think it's really important to understand this, that the colonial question is the fundamental question that has to be overturned. We'll overturn colonialism, we can get to the other stuff. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, really, wow. I mean, just so much clarity. How could you, it just makes so much sense. Thank you so much for putting that out. It's undeniable if we look at the world as it is and history and, you know, the reality today. And, you know, just, I really,
I want to say that what happens is, and I'm concerned about that now, because now you see right at this very moment, when the whole colonial system is facing crisis again, when the Palestinian people are fighting, when you see Venezuela, you see, and you see St. Louis, Missouri, you see the struggle against colonialism heating up, then somebody wants to divert the discussion and talk about fascism. And I say it's opportunistic, because fascism, again, is this struggle for a short-term a solution. It destroys the long-term objective. What do we mean opportunism? It's not just throwing pejoratives at somebody, but if we accept the definition of opportunism as sacrificing the long-term interests of the class for some advantage of a petty bourgeoisie or something like that, or what somebody might refer to as a labor aristocracy, the white people, you get rid of colonialism because of fascism, and the fascism becomes an issue not when they're killing Black people or indigenous people or Palestinians or Cubans or Venezuelans. Fascism when it happens to white people. And that is opportunism, sacrifice the long-term aims of the revolution to satisfy the interests of the petty bourgeoisie.
Uhuru, Chairman, that is so powerful, so scientific, so correct. Really, really unite with this understanding that you've given us. Comrade Jesse.
Uhuru, yes, I just want to unite with appreciation for this incredibly important analysis of the question of fascism and you know, the clarity of it and the focus and keeping us away from all of these various opportunistic gambits that people, you know, people want to take us on, away from the struggle against the primary contradiction, which is colonialism. And Chairman, there's another question we wanted to talk with you about as it relates to political trials. One of the most significant political trials, I think, in the past 100 years, if not more, that took place in this city where we are right now. If you go to City Hall in St. Petersburg, Florida, and walk into the building and look up at the stairwell, there is a huge blank space where once there used to hang a hideous, racist, offensive white nationalist so-called mural portraying African people in an incredibly dehumanizing, grotesque caricature painted by a white man named George Snow Hill. And that painting was removed heroically by our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, in 1966, December of 1966, when, Chairman, you were a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. You and others went into City Hall and took down that mural after, and I know there's a whole story behind that, how that all came about. But the mural did come down, and more than 50 years later, that's not good math. 60 years later,
60 years.
they have not put a single thing up on that wall. And they've tried. they have tried. And every time they've tried, it's been an attempt to cover over what that blank wall represents, which is the mark of African resistance on the city, the unresolved contradiction of the colonial question in this city, in the city of St. Petersburg, where the colonial hell in which African people live is what gave birth to the African People's Socialist Party in this city. And, you know, we often talk about this history and we say Chairman Omali Yeshitela tore down that mural and he was sentenced to prison for 5 years, and he spent 2.5 years, nearly 3 years in prison. But that is a little bit of an oversimplification of what actually happened, because the actual legal political saga of the removal of that mural lasted 7 years. For 7 years, the chairman was in and out of prisons on charges related to the heroic act, the first Black Power direct action of taking down that mural. And I want to say a little bit about that and then, you know, open it up to you, Chairman. So we know that first the chairman was arrested and tried and convicted in municipal court with 2 ordinance violations for the removal of that mural. Then, based on the same acts, the chairman was prosecuted and convicted in the Circuit Court of Florida for grand larceny for the same acts. And I'm reading right now from a website that covers Supreme Court cases in history, because a lot of people don't know the issue of the prosecution of Chairman Omali Yeshitela for the removal of that mural went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States in November of 1969. It was heard by the Supreme Court because of the obvious fact that to try and convict the chairman for grand larceny, after he had already been tried and convicted on ordinance violations in municipal court, is double jeopardy. It's in violation of the double jeopardy clause of the Fifth Amendment to the US Constitution. So it went to the Supreme Court, and the chairman and his attorneys argued that the municipal court and the circuit court prosecutions were double jeopardy. So first it went to appeal, and the chairman argued that. The District Court of Appeal of Florida rejected the argument and upheld the conviction. So then it went all the way to the Supreme Court under Chief Justice Warren Burger, and the Supreme Court agreed with the chairman that it was double jeopardy and vacated the circuit court conviction and used this struggle that the chairman made to solve a problem within colonial law having to do with the double jeopardy clause of the Fifth Amendment and what they refer to as dual sovereignty, where you have, like, basically, okay, well, if it's a city, if it's a municipal court and a state court, because it's within the same state, in this case, Florida, do those count as 2 separate courts? So the Supreme Court decided, no, they don't. They count as one sovereign judicial system. They used the chairman's case to solve that question, but then remanded the case back to the state court, which then tried and convicted the chairman a 3rd time. So Chairman Omali Yeshitela, over the course of 7 years, was tried, convicted, and sentenced for tearing down that mural, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And there's a very powerful dissertation that a student wrote years ago that describes the final day that you walked out of that courthouse, Chairman, when the judge heard your arguments and your attorney's arguments and concluded the case with a reduced sentence, quote unquote, where the prosecutors were expecting you to spend even more years in prison. And it was based on struggle by the people. And what this dissertation reports you saying as you left the court, that a reporter approached you and asked, do you have any comments on how this whole thing ended up? And you said, yeah, the power of the people is fantastic. So just want to open it up to you, Chair, to talk about that.
Great overview.
Correct.
That's really...
Let me say this. I thank you, Comrade Justice, about that trial, about the issues, because they charged me with 11 different offenses for that mural, 11. And of them, one was destruction of public property, which was kind of like a misdemeanor. And then they took me to tried me for felony charge of destruction of public property, of a grand larceny. And grand larceny, they said, was an act with the intent to deprive the lawful owner of whatever it is that was taken. And in this instance, it was depriving the owner through destruction. But I'd already been tried for destruction of the property. Right. So that's the kind of thing that happened. And then, as you mentioned, I was tried 3 times. Right. 3 times. The double jeopardy, you're talking about triple jeopardy is what happened in that case. And it was really important. And the judge, had its own issue. So what happened down the line, you mentioned how in 1973, we went before Seth, what was Seth's last name, the judge? I can't remember right now off the top, but he is the one who said that, he made this speech about how, the times have changed so much and that the mural was, really horrible. And while he doesn't support, breaking the law and stuff like that, it was, clear that it was on the right side of history. And so that he sentenced me to time served that was already been served, more or less. So that happened. But the thing is, before that, we were still engaged in struggle. Right. And the Democratic Party was trying to break into really trying to, for the first time in a long time, to win a presidential election by, and they haven't been able to do it because in the South, the white people were not voting for Democrats, particularly because the Democrats seemed to have been associated with civil rights and stuff like that. That's how, I think Nixon had, with the Republican, with the Southern strategy and stuff like that, and they were able to maintain. So they came up with getting a Southern person to be their candidate. In this instance, his name was Reuben Askew. He was the governor of the state of Florida. And he was a Presbyterian, Sunday school teacher, that kind of thing. And he was the Jimmy Carter of Florida. And the thing that wrecked Reuben Askew's ability to do that is he was from a place called Pensacola, Florida. And in Pensacola, the Highway Patrol had actually blown this young brother, 21-year-old Blackwell was his last name, shot him in the head and blew his head off. Mm-hmm. And the NAACP, a very bold NAACP leader at the time named Goodman, asked me to come in to work with them to organize around that case. And so I did. And then there was that case, that was the case of Pitts and Lee, 2 young African men who had been locked up for 12 years for murder that white man had already confessed to. So there was no question. So we led demonstration. We haunted Askew. Every place he went, we disrupted his inauguration when he had won re-election. We were there. In fact, he sent for me. Askew talked to me to try to chill it out and everything. We had demonstrations at the Capitol, and I ended up in in Askew's office with other comrades, with Gooden, who was from the NAACP, and with Blackwell's wife. And, and I told Askew that you are not going to ride into the White House on the bodies of Pitts and Lee and this brother Blackwell. And I don't know why I'm here and where I'm getting out. There was a demonstration happening outside at the same time. So I jumped up, and the sheriff who was in the office from that county with Askew, he grabs me and he says, you can't leave. You leave at something of the governor. I said, what the hell? I'm leaving now. And so me and the sheriff wrestling all over the governor's office. And so Askew said, let him go, let him go, let him go. And so we go out, and then I get a phone call, perhaps a few weeks later, from this person who's quite renowned now in the in the Black nationalist movement around issues of economics and Black economics and what have you, Claude Anderson. But he was working for ASCU. He worked for ASCU. So he called me, and our office at this time was in Gainesville, and he said, look, we hear that you plan to have a demonstration at the governor's mansion. And we would rather you didn't do it at the governor's mansion. Said, go, because that targets the governor, go to the Capitol instead. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I said, we don't have time to change. We can't change plans at this date. We engaged, we got this court case that's out in Pinellas County, and that's what we're organizing for. So, so he said, court case, he said, who's the judge? And I told him, he said, where is it? I told him, he said, don't worry about it.
Wow.
And that's the prelude to my going. So it wasn't just legal. The power of the people.
Exactly.
Threat of the people. The power, that's the critical thing that's involved. And you just reminded me of that. And that's why I went on this long.
That's great. Thank you.
Wow, Chairman, so much great. What incredible history.
Yeah.
Really, really love this. This brings us to our last question that we would have time for this evening. And that is that on Monday, September 3rd, the trial of the bogus trial.
Is it Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
I'm sorry, it is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yes, it is Tuesday. Why did I put Monday?
Memorial
Okay.
Labor Day. Yeah, Labor Day.
Yeah, Tuesday, September 3rd, the trial of the Uhuru 3 begins. And the Saturday prior to that will be the August 31st, and there will be a mass mobilization here in Tampa. We want everybody here for that mobilization, for the trial. The state needs to see the profound support for Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru 3. And just, Chairman, I mean, you've said it a number of times tonight, but the victory is in the people, as you have said, and this is what you are building, a mass campaign to push back the state.
Yes.
So just talk about the importance of this and the confidence that you will win, the party will win, African working class will put the state on trial and push back these attacks.
Well, I want to call on people to send the $500 for the Solidarity Center, because this is part of the struggle of the African liberation movement to win, because we are denying them an opportunity, or we are attempting to deny them an opportunity to isolate the African liberation movement inside this country as well, so that they will not have absolute solidarity of white people in the oppression of African people. And that's what they have been able to expect, that because the charges that they made against us are so fraudulent, so bogus, that they rely more on what they have assumed to be the residual prejudice of the white population in order to be victorious. And of course, we know they are wrong, only because there are 130 different cities within which the solidarity movement is not active. So we've opened up a whole new front. And that's part of what this is about as well. And that's what the $500 for the Solidarity Center is about as well, and more than that. So the thing is that it must really be understood, as I said earlier, that our objective was to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. And we did not get involved in this movement to keep me out of jail. We got involved in this movement to advance the liberation of our people. And we have understood, again, the depth of the colonial contradiction in terms of the colonial mode of production that embraces the entire planet Earth, and especially the majority of the people function as hosts in this parasitic kind of relationship. And so we are advancing this struggle. And this trial will advance this struggle. And this is what we are calling on everybody here to participate in advancing this struggle, not just to get us out of jail, even though I think that will be a critical victory for the struggle that we're involved in, but to recognize and see this case and fighting against this case as a fight against colonialism. And we are clear on that. Again, we saw what happened to the Panther 21 and so many people, but after that, it disappeared, so we've just begun to reignite the whole question about colonialism in this last period. The party has done that. So we think that's important, and that's why we've created even the Hands Off Uhuru movement, and what we characterize as an anti-colonial free speech movement that now has something like 40 different organizations that's associated with it. We are going on September 3rd. Our struggle is defense of all the colonized peoples here in this country and around the world. That's what we're going into a courtroom with. And we're asking people to come on August 31st to St. Petersburg, Florida, where we're going to have a mass march, and we're going to have mobilizations. And from we call it the long hot summer. And it's going to be something that's happening between now and for the entire 4 months, 4 weeks, rather, that they say this trial is supposed to happen. Actions, activity, and bringing all the colonized people and supporters of the struggle against colonialism into this process. And so everybody needs to be here. Everybody needs to be here. And you can go to handsoffuhuru.org to get more information about that. But that's what we're about. And we want everybody who's here to be about that as well. Our objective has to be more than simply getting somebody out of prison. Our objective has to be to help people understand that they want to put me in prison because of the struggle against colonialism, that the issue of free speech is not some abstract thing that everybody can speak freely. The only ones who have this question of free speech are the ones who are being oppressed, exploited. And Africans have never had free speech since we've come into this relationship that we have. That's why there's an Emmett Till. That's why Black people have to be afraid for so much of my life to even look a white person in the eye. This was the reality in this country, and it hasn't changed that much. And so come get involved in this and go to handsoffuhuru.org. And then while you're in that arena, go to the APSC, how do we say it? Make a donation for the $500 to the center, and prepare yourself to come to August 31st, and as much time as you can spend between August 31st and the trial, the duration of the trial. Look at how much time you can spend.
Yeah.
If you can spend it all the same time, then block this week out, that week out, etc. But let's be there and let's educate everybody. Let's rebuild the kind of movement that we knew in the 60s when the struggle against colonialism had really achieved a critical mass, if you will. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Yes, all out to September 3rd, the Uhuru 3 trial, all out to August 31st mobilization. Everybody's got to be in Tampa, St. Petersburg in that period. And as the chairman said, for the whole duration, however long it takes, be here, or be here as long as you can. Go to handsoffuhuru.org, sign up. There's forms that you can sign up if you're going to be able to be here in Tampa, so we'll know you're coming. And we really, really appreciate you, Chairman, tonight. And we want to say that so far we have raised $415. So we just need $5 more. And I see Comrade Brendan. I want to turn it back over to you, Comrade. Thank you again so much, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. That was truly profound. And it is so liberating to be able to see the world as it really is, not as we want it to be, but as it truly is, based on science and through the eyes of the African working class. So again, thank you very much, Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Uhuru, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Chairman. And I want to salute and thank Chair Penny and Chair Jesse for for having that incredible discussion with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and I want to let everyone know we will be having that Q&A session in just a little bit, so we can kind of deepen some of this. So please submit those questions in the Zoom Q&A or YouTube or Facebook chat. But I do want to take a few minutes to talk about how you can get involved in solidarity with African people's struggle for liberation and support this work and be a part of it. So the most important thing we can do to stand with all oppressed people is to join under the leadership of the African Revolution. And that is what we do. That's why APSC was created. We have a goal to raise $500 today for the Solidarity Center here in St. Louis. So again, please go to apscahuru.org/donate. And we do have a slideshow. I want to go ahead and get started on that. There it is. Uhuru. So the African People's Solidarity Committee is unique in that it is a strategic front of the African liberation movement behind enemy lines. So we struggle in the white community to build reparations and to build support. We're led by the African People's Socialist Party, and it was and you can kind of see some of the old pictures there. The APSC was founded in 1976. Next slide. So the mass organization of APSC is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, with members in 130 cities in the US and Canada. And if you haven't gotten involved, if you haven't joined any of these movements, I definitely join, the Solidarity movement. So next, yeah. APSC is a cadre organization, meaning we adhere to African internationalism, the worldview of the African People's Socialist Party, which is a worldview to change the world, not just analyze it, a theory that demands practice. You can see in a lot of these slides, comrades actually, putting in the work and real, practical and, material, like change, like actual work and institutions, which the next slide, the national headquarters of APSC and USM is a Solidarity Center that we're raising funds for today. I do want to go ahead and shout out some of the people that have donated so far. Lisa in Minneapolis, Len right here in St. Louis, Kat in London, Mike in Baltimore, Leah in Minneapolis, Francis in Illinois, Janice in St. Petersburg, Raya in Chicago, MQ in Florida, Becky in Minneapolis, Susan in Arlington, and Ann in Ecuador. Awesome, very cool. And we are at $440. So we are so close to that $500 mark. Let's pass that. Next slide. So the Uhuru Solidarity Movement holds the annual March for Reparations in St. Louis, as well as other cities around the US. There's last year's March. And then, the main work of APSC and USM is reparations. Our responsibility, returning stolen resources to the programs of the party, building political and economic power to the African working class. So these programs include the Black Power Blueprint, in the Uhuru houses, Uhuru Food and Pies, and Black Power 96 FM, as well as, the Burning Spear newspaper. And that's just a few of these things. Next slide. The critical front of all the work under the leadership of the party is Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, pushing back the state attacks on the African liberation movement. And like we talked about just a little bit ago, Chairman Omali Yeshitela is the target of the FBI bogus colonial attack, along with Penny Hess and Jesse Neville. Yeah, and I want to invite everybody all out to Tampa in August and September. So Saturday, August 31st, come out to St. Petersburg, Florida for the Not One Step Backwards March and Rally, demanding hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela and to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. And you can sign up, you can register at handsoffuhuru.org/March. And stay for the start of the Uhuru 3 trial beginning Tuesday, September 3rd in Tampa Federal Court. let us know. You will be there and get more info at handsoffuhuru.org/trial. We will win, build the anti-colonial free speech movement, and let's see kind of where we're at with the donations. So we still are $60. I will go ahead and pledge 30 if I'm gonna call on somebody to meet me there, and we will hit our goal and go ahead and move on. Do we have any takers? Oh, we have Jamie in St. Petersburg with 25.
All right.
Uhuru comrades, let's see, what do we, Uhuru.
$5 short.
Okay, well, we will get that in the Q&A, and I know we'll probably get a lot more than that. We will pass that $500 goal, and I want to,
Oh, Frank Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, $30. There. Oh, there's Frank.
There we go. We
Francis.
passed it. We beat the goal tonight. Excellent. Awesome. Okay. Uhuru, everybody. Okay.
Uhuru.
And see, do we want to go right ahead? I do want to, again, just invite everyone to, join USM, join the African People's Solidarity Committee, come be a part of this work and show like real concrete solidarity with the African liberation movement. And you can go and join APSC at apscuhuru.org/join. And fill out the form, and someone from the membership office will contact you within 24 hours, and we'll get started on all that. So, and yes, we did. We beat our goal, and we are going to go ahead and move on to our discussion and Q&A. We've got a whole bunch of questions, so let's kind of dive right into that. Before we go into that, Chair Penny, did you have anything you were wanting to add?
Well, I was just, I see a question from Frank Lawrence. And he is saying that the US government seems upset by your position on Ukraine and seems determined to go to war with Russia. What do you think the real motivation of the US is with respect to defeating Russia? Considering the damage to Ukraine, the well-being of Ukraine doesn't seem to matter to the US. So that is from.
Yeah, thank you so much, Comrade Francis. I agree. The Ukrainian people don't mean a damn thing to the United States, except for the deals that the Bidens were involved in making with some of them before this stuff started. But the fact is that that the way the world has changed just over the last several years has created an existential crisis for the United States. And when we say existential, we mean a fundamental crisis. The whole existence of the United States as is being recognized as at stake. And that means that the motive they don't have to be rational. I mean, I think there's a lot of irrationality associated with this. And part of it, I do believe, is that they would try to do what they did with Afghanistan to drain Russia, to create a Vietnam, if you will, for Russia, like they did in Afghanistan. And I say create a Vietnam for them because the U.S. Felt with the struggle of the Vietnamese people that it drained treasury and it disrupted so much in the United States. People may forget the assassination of a president, the whole disruption of the politics inside this country, leadership in this country. People, leaders were overthrown. Nixon, Agnew, all of those people in this process. Johnson couldn't run anymore. It was a completely disruptive thing. And then, of course, Vietnam didn't just happen in isolation to struggles happening elsewhere in this country. African people involved in this struggle, Mexicans involved in this struggle, and indigenous people. So it was a fundamental kind of crisis that they were going through, and that's why you saw these assassinations, and that's where, by the way, we saw what the so-called Cuban Missile Crisis. Where there was this whole possible threat of nuclear conflagration. And I think you're looking at the same possibilities here with this struggle with Ukraine. And every day the U.S. seems to be inching further and further into an arena of a Rubicon, no return. That they allowing them to utilize American weapons to attack Russia directly. They're actually talking aloud about U.S. mercenaries or contractors, if they're saying, fighting in Ukraine against Russians. They're even talking about revitalizing the draft and giving it new life. It's never going away, but they're talking about it now, about revitalizing it and bringing women into the draft, et cetera. So it's a real existential crisis. And of course, the arms industry that is responsible for funding for these guys who employ, they get in office, they're really employees of the arms industry as well. So I think all of those factors converge on this contradiction. And like I said, you can look at all of this and have an explanation, but it doesn't you can't sum it up as rational, in the sense that I just think is an extraordinary, desperate kind of situation. The whole social fabric of this country is something that's rending at the same time. So Ukraine is not happening in isolation. Now the U.S. has to contend with Russia again, that it had determined to be a non-factor. William Jefferson Clinton, president, really did a dance of celebration of the death of Russia. Some of the leading pundits of the United States, like Fukuyama, wrote the thing about the end of history with the collapse of Russia. So that was supposed to not even be a factor. And then China slept on them. They slept on China because they thought they were just going to rush into China and get, make all this resources, et cetera. And now China is contending with them as well. And not only are these forces contending, they are allying themselves, aligning themselves sometimes with forces that are they're absolutely a problem for the continuation of the system as it exists right now. So I know that's not, probably not a pat kind of answer, Francis, but I don't think that that there's necessarily a rational explanation. I can give an explanation for some of these things, but the summation of it is not what they think. The conclusions are not the conclusions that they expect. And I think you got a lot of different forces also contending for conclusions. So in the same mix, and at the same time they're doing this, inside the country, sectors of the ruling class are contending with this project. So, I mean, you see that with the Trump and which is, is changing by the day. Even, Trump's, articulations and his, how he's, talked about the world up to now. But anyway, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, thank you so much. And we have some really great questions. We probably won't be able to take them all, but we really do appreciate that. But a couple of people are asking for your comments on the Julian Assange plea deal. And I know you were summing that up a little bit today. So if you could share that with.
Well, maybe a little bit. I'm glad that Assange is out of prison. I'm glad also to hear the statement by his wife. Yeah. Who recognized that, who stated clearly that there was a real major assault on free speech that locked him up, and was unapologetic about that. And there are some questions as to whether the plea deal, guilty plea deal, will establish some kind of precedent that will be useful for keeping other people used against other people. But I don't know if precedent is the issue here. I mean, I think, again, but Julian, he had access to supporters, a lot of different supporters in different places. And even some of the people in power, are now able to say Julian Assange is a really nice guy and he was treated badly and that kind of thing. But I think that he didn't have this kind of organization And there was no to what end except getting him out of prison. And there was no, and in many ways, despite this assault on Assange, a point that we've tried to make that we support it, we want Assange out. This whole question of free speech is not something to play with, it's real. But the difference in what was happening with us and what happened to Panther 21, is that there's a way the free speech issue helps to perfect the system. And it's to say that the struggle for free speech can help to perfect the system, while the struggle against colonialism helps to challenge the existence of the system. And so I'm really glad that Assange is out, and I just think it's a clear example of the kind of terror that this government is using, and that denies people a right to think things, and here they can kill people. They're murdering people all over the world, and Assange exposes that. And that's why he's in prison. And I really hate the hypocrisy of, I think the New York Times or Washington Post, one of them, is saying that, well, like what he's done with this plea is somehow establish a precedent, for attack on the press. Well, hell, I mean, if you screamed as loudly about what was happening to Assange as you were doing about the spy that the Washington Post had in Russia, maybe that wouldn't, you wouldn't have to worry about that. But now you can cry crocodile tears. That's what you're crying. And if you really believed in free press, then you would have been upset because the United States government is attacking the Uhuru 3. Because we wrote stuff in the newspaper about Russia and the Olympics, because we, in our own newspaper, because we had webinars that featured somebody from Russia, that we can get people can have another story, understanding what the hell was happening in Ukraine, etc. You don't believe in free speech. We know that this nonsense they're doing now about Assange is garbage. But we're glad that Assange is out of there, and that's something like 11 months, if I'm not mistaken, 11 years that he was tied to this grotesque Kafkaesque, is that the term?
Kafka.
They locked him, up, and etc. So it was. I can't see. I'm glad that he's out. And I'm glad his wife was able to say it was an attack on free speech after he was out. And she's saying that Julian's not saying much now because, he needs to, recuperate and get himself together. And I understand that. I'm glad through her, that statement about free speech was made.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I also think that, what you have struggled for in Hands Off Uhuru is the anti-colonial free speech, the right of the colonized to fight for their liberation, and to really, I unite with you that Assange, that was treated really badly, but at the same time, the attack on free speech to African people has been about assassination and Martin Luther King being murdered by this government, and Malcolm X, and it's just the way, like you're saying, the colonial question and the way that this system moves against African people.
And the so-called Aborigines in Australia, where Assange is coming.
Yes, yes.
Got no rights at all, almost wiped out, so
and there's a lot of struggles going on there.
Yes, going on now, all over in that particular geographical area. And so the freedom of speech that Assange, is talking about is the free speech that rests upon the graves and things of the so-called Aborigines, the Black people there in Australia, throughout New Zealand, all those other places in the area. I'm glad he's out of jail. And all of that, but I recognize that there's a difference about this question. Again, free speech for Assange can actually function as a means of perfecting the system, resting on the oppression of the rest of us. And so it's different. But that's the thing that we're trying to really alert colonizers to. I mean, listen, one of the problems that the state has with us is we plan to govern. We plan to govern. We're not just involved in some kind of empty discussion. And this is the problem that much of the left has had with us and the black, what they call the black nationalist movement. Because, and you know, this is why, you know, they would even challenge our characterization of ourselves as Africans. The problem is that these forces were relatively new to the political scene. I mean, America is just, you know, it's just got here. It's what, you know, a few hundred years old. And you look at China, you look at Africa, you look at India, you look at all these other places around the world, and America just got here. If we talk about self-determination for African people, if I'm an African, then the average white person is faced with the question, if they are African, who the hell am I? You know, and this is a problem. The Australians, who, you know, and people in the Maori and all these other people, you know, in these settler, colonies. These are interesting kind of contradictions, but there's a way out of it. You don't have to be locked into it. Assange doesn't. He could come on over. And we can send him a membership form for APSC, at least USM.
Definitely.
Uhuru, yes, absolutely, could join under the leadership of the anti-colonial struggle of the world, which is the only thing that will truly win the essence of free speech for the majority of the people on the planet Earth. And yeah, I just want to say too, there's several other questions. We won't be able to, as I said, we won't be able to take them all, but I do want to say, and I want to thank Mike Reeves from Maryland, because you said that you were definitely going to be there at the trial beginning September 3rd. And there is a form on handsoffuhuru.org on the homepage that you could fill out if you're planning to be in Tampa for the August 31st and for the September 3rd beginning the trial. And we would like to see, you know, that you're going to be there. And we have already many people who have signed that, and we're asking people to sign that. I asked somebody to put it in the chat so that you could easily get it, but you can also go to handsoffuhuru.org. It's right on the homepage. All the things you need to find out about actually coming to the trial to August 31st through this mass mobilization. Everybody's got to come out to that. And thank you, Mike, for saying that you are going to be there. I see a question from Rose Brewer in Minneapolis, and I think you kind of answered this because she was saying, what are the next steps? I think she had her hand raised, and I don't know if she wanted to say something or put it in the chat, but Chairman, I think you kind of addressed next steps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so, but I really want to express my appreciation for Rose for being here and part of this movement, and even asking that question, indicating an intent to participate.
yes.
I really just want to, because I know you will see that what we are talking about now, what we represent, will actually become a crescendo in the near future. But I know that, and you would understand why I'm saying this if you knew from where we started, you know, with this movement. And but I know that for a lot of people, it's been swimming upstream. It's going against the grain and what have you, the politic that we represent. And so I really respect and appreciate, you know, your participation and the fact that you raised that question, and the fact that you intend to be here. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Rose, for that participation. Yes, Jesse.
Quick comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Chairman, I just wanted to appreciate your summation of the situation around Julian Assange, and you know, and also your reference to the statement that his wife Stella Assange made. And I saw a comment in the chat from Frank Lawrence, who, I just also want to recognize Frank for being a consistent supporter of Hands Off Uhuru and working with the
Absolutely.
Chicago Area Peace Action Network and the Nicaragua Solidarity Coalition to host a
Yes.
really important webinar with the chairman and the Uhuru 3 and one of our attorneys, Leonard Goodman. And Frank put in the chat that Assange supporters need to pivot to the Uhuru 3. And I just wanted to, say that based on, in terms of what you were putting out, Chairman, just thinking about what made Assange known was, as you said, he was exposing what the United States was doing in Afghanistan. That's the real story. And that's what the African People's Socialist Party is struggling to end. The African People's Socialist Party is not just struggling for the right to talk about it and expose it, but the right to actually end the kind of colonial genocidal horror and violence that African people are victims of, that people in Afghanistan are victims of, and that most of the peoples on the planet Earth are victimized by. And I just want to agree, all the people out there who have been rallying behind Assange, where do you go now? You come to Hands Off Uhuru, because until colonialism is gone, until the anti-colonial free speech movement is victorious, there will be another Assange. Like the chairman said, this whole thing rests upon the colonial question. And until colonialism is dealt with, until the colonial question is dealt with, the next person that comes along and exposes it will likely also face this kind of persecution and repression. And the only thing that's going to bring that to an end, I always think about Afia Nwangaza's statement last year at the Black is Back March, when she said that the prosecution of the chairman and the Uhuru movement is the point of the spear for the U.S. state. So it has to be the point of the spear for us too. It has to be the point of the spear of all the resistance of all people that are fighting against repression and for anti-colonial free speech. So come on board. All the people who've been with Assange, come into Hands Off Uhuru, because this is the real way forward. So
I want to say that I remember Frank, and I was impressed because he came the first time I met him. It may have been on a webinar or something. He was a representative of Julian Assange.
Yeah.
And he came over, and I was really impressed by his stance then. Now. And I want to just make a statement that it's similar to a statement that we heard read by the Panther 21 of the 13 members of the Panther 21. I just want to remind everybody that in this country, the so-called Bill of Rights of the Constitution was something that was written in 1791. African people were experiencing, horrible, horrendous kind of colonial slavery at that time in this country. There was no Bill of Rights for us. The Bill of Rights was something that the white people, the colonizers, conferred upon themselves,
right?
As an explanation or position that they did not want to see the tyranny that they were escaping from imposed on them anymore, and the system they were creating. Of course, the system they were creating was one that was on indigenous land, and that knew wealth and resources because of African slavery. But it wasn't for us. And it was only 1865. We're talking about 1791 being the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment. 1865, the so-called Civil War that is allegedly conferred freedom on Black people. Of course, that didn't do it either. Otherwise, it wouldn't be necessary for the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So the fact is that it wasn't for us. It was only through various kinds of struggles happening with Black people here and peoples around the world that the U.S. had begun to pretend that it was for us. And they used to, back when I was in school, they referred to as the difference in de facto and de jure. By law, we have these rights. De jure, But in fact, de facto, they don't exist. That's the way it has always been. And that is true with all colonized people. It's true with the people, the so-called Aborigines in Australia, where Assange is, New Zealand, all of those places. But a point is that when they come at the so-called free speech rights of Omali Yeshitela and Black people and the Black liberation movement and the Mexicans and the indigenous people here, it's you ultimately they're coming for, because we never had the rights in the first place. That takes it back to the whole question about fascism. We never had those rights. Colonialism, by definition, denies us these rights. So I'm hoping that Francis can really help some of these comrades who are associated with the Assange Defense Committee to make that pivot that that was talked about, Uhuru.
Yes.
Uhuru. Well, just thank you so much, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, for being here tonight. Thank everybody who's been on. This has been so dynamic and really opens us up to seeing the world in a much deeper way than we have, and to understand this question of colonialism, and that the liberation and leadership of African and colonized people is our liberation. It is our ability to live in a world without the oppressor and the oppressed. And that is such a liberating thing. That is a beautiful thing for us to be able to experience. Chairman Omali Yeshitela, we appreciate you so much. Your leadership is profound, not only in this meeting, but in the world today. And this has been very, very exciting. Can you just give us a parting few words for our event tonight, Uhuru?
I want to thank everybody, and I just want to, I think it was Francis who raised the question about Ukraine. And I just wanted to say that Foreign Affairs, within the last month or so, did an article talking about a real problem for U.S. foreign policy. And that is that historically Black people have not supported the wars that the United States has engaged in around the world against peoples around the world. I mean, that of course says a lot about the notion that the Russians would have to pay us to do this, and the government knows that's a damn contradiction. In Foreign Affairs, which is a leading entity, a leading journal of the thinking representatives of the ruling class in this country, it's something they know, that historically Black people do not support these and have not supported these wars. Even when Obama was president, it didn't occur. So I just wanted to say that, and this is stuff you can reference. And it's the thing is that it's such a lie. The whole thing is such a lie that they're not doing this to us because they believe it's true. They're not doing this to us because they think that you have to believe it's true. They're doing it because they have the power. They have the guns, they have the resources, and they feel like they have the hubris. They think they can do what they want to do. They would negate the significance of human beings. And most human beings, I really believe, on Earth, I know it's true of most human beings on Earth. I don't know about most white people, but most people on Earth, have concluded a long time ago that there's something wrong with the organization of society, global society, that presupposes a minority of people should have all the resources of the world and be able to dominate the majority of the people on the planet Earth. And that's the basis for all of the struggles and stuff that we see happening, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to play the game. So I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to be here with you. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad we got the 500 plus for the Solidarity Center. And even though it's going to be uncomfortable for somebody to come back and count it all up after this webinar is over, they probably wouldn't mind if you sent some more. So Uhuru, thank you.
Chairman Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, comrades.
Thank you. And we'll see everybody August 31st, Tampa, Florida, right here, St. Petersburg, and September 3rd for this bogus trial, push back the state,
Yes.
We are winning. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Vanguard up, comrades.
Vanguard up, relentless.